permission of divorce still holds. That's a reasonable way to go. Sounds reasonable to me. I believed that for about 40 years. And many do today. Or, here's a second way he could go, and you must judge. Where's he going? What's he doing? How's he thinking? Or he might say, I'm the Messiah, the Christ, the Son of Man has come into the world to gather a people by faith in Him and by union with Him. And they are called now to display the true meaning of marriage in the way they keep their marriage covenants. Because I've come into the world to live that reality, and I want you to show that reality in the way you live. In other words, will the emphasis fall on the fact that the church still has hardness of heart in it, so we still need a Deuteronomic permission? Or will the emphasis fall on the old has passed away and the new has come, and my standards are different than Moses? Because I'm here, and I'm what it's about. I'm going to die. I'm going to rise again. I'm going to be faithful to my bride. I'm what it's about. I'm on the scene, doing it. And now I'm upping the ante to say it's about showing this. Now what he does is draw three conclusions from these Old Testament passages that he quoted. Three conclusions. Here they are. Number one. In verse 8, at the end of the verse, you see the word so. That's a conclusion. So, they are no longer two, but one flesh. In other words, he quoted that from Genesis 2:24. Man shall leave his mother and father, cleave to each other, become one flesh. And now he says, so they are. Are, not were, not will be, are. Now, that's the meaning. When marriage happens, one flesh. That's the first conclusion he draws. They are not two, they are one flesh. The kind of union that I have now with my church, one body. Conclusion number two, in verse 9. What therefore God has joined together. So his second conclusion is God joins people together. A man and a woman fall in love. A man proposes, a woman accepts. Parents come around and bless. A pastor, a justice of the peace is called in. That's a lot of humans working here. And Jesus says, yeah, they're all here, but one person is doing this marriage, God. What therefore God has joined together. When I do a wedding, and I don't do many anymore, I begin at the front end with, we have gathered to solemnize an act that God is about to perform in these next 30 minutes. Therefore, let us now invoke His presence. That's the way I begin. And I usually quote what God has joined together. So that's the second conclusion Jesus draws from Genesis 2:24. God is the marriage maker. Believers and unbelievers. Don't say that's only true of believers. It's true of unbelievers. Marriage is a creation ordinance. It counts outside the church. It counts with God outside the church. Third conclusion that he draws, verse 9. Let not man separate. What God joined, let not man separate. Now, the word translated man is not the word male over against female. It's the word human over against divine. Man in the generic sense. So the point he's making is divine action created this. Human action can't end it. That's the point. What God has joined, let no human being presume to separate. Those are the three conclusions that Jesus draws, and he's done with the Pharisees. It's over. They ask no more, he says no more. That's all he has to say to them, and they're gone. They asked, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife? He answers, what God has joined together, let no man separate. The answer is no, it's not lawful. It contradicts the ultimate meaning of marriage as a representation of Christ in the church. Now, of course, one might say, a very thoughtful, careful, reasoning person would legitimately say, it's always contradicted the main meaning of marriage. Even in Moses' day, it contradicted the meaning of marriage. So, Moses made a way out. Why can't we still have a way out? To which my response is, that's not the way Jesus is thinking in these verses. Jesus is calling his disciples to a higher standard rooted in the original teaching of Moses, not the compromised teaching of Deuteronomy 24. Jesus didn't come simply to fulfill the Mosaic legal stipulations and affirm them. He came to fulfill it in his own person and work, his obedience and death, and then to take his ransomed, forgiven, justified people into a higher standard that understands the fullness and depths of Moses. I'll give you an analogy of what I mean. You know the Sermon on the Mount, chapter 5 of Matthew, 5:17. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law and the prophets. I've not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. I think that's a very rich statement that includes a lot of things. One of the things it includes is the 6 statements of illustration that follow. He gives 6 examples of what it would mean to go down deep into Moses and come up full. I'll give you a couple of examples. You remember them. You have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not murder. But I say to you, everyone who's angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. So Jesus didn't just come to make sure we don't kill each other. He came to say, do you know what's in there? You know what the deep, rich, solid, full meaning of don't kill is? It means don't be angry. And I'm here to bring it about and fill it up. Here's a second example. You have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you, everyone who looks on a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart. He didn't just come to keep us out of bed with other women. He came to clean up our heads. You see what he's doing? Jesus is not simply saying, okay, you didn't get Moses and I'm here to reinstall Moses. He's saying, I'm going down deep. He's pointing forward. He's pointing down. And I'm going to let this thing flower. And I'm going to live it. I'm going to die it. I'm going to forgive all your failures of it. and I'm going to give you